Alright, what's going on everyone out there on YouTube, NES Ruler, and welcome to a brand new review. And this time we'll be checking out a film that was sent to me by MVD, and it is another film that is part of my punk documentary series that I've been doing here on the channel over the past year or so. MVD releases a whole bunch of really great punk documentaries, and I've reviewed, Salad Days, which is an awesome documentary about Washington, D.C. punk movement, Rebel Scum, a little bit of a different type of a scene in a Bible Belt section of Tennessee, and then we got Dicks from Texas, and now we have probably one of the most well-known punk bands besides, the Sex Pistols and the Clash, and that is The Damned. And this documentary is titled The Damned, Don't You Wish That We Were Dead? And this is definitely the well-made documentary out of the four that I've reviewed so far on the channel. Not only does it have interesting B-roll that really goes with what's going on at the time with the people talking, which besides Salad Days, the other two really don't do that well, but this one definitely has the highest production value in that sense. And it's just a really interesting story, especially because The Damned is such a huge part of the punk movement in general, especially in the UK. So basically the documentary just, goes through the history of The Damned and the struggles that they've had to have over the history of the band, changing band members and rights issues and all this kind of stuff that happens within the original four members of the band. And then we got interviews with the people who came into the band later on. And, the really interesting part of this documentary is mainly just hearing the story from all four original members of the band. We got David Fabian, and then we have Captain Sensible, Rat Scabbies, and Brian James. And the split between Captain Sensible and Dave and Rat Scabies and Brian James is really interesting because it's really down the middle. Two of them stuck together and continued The Damned, and the other two kind of went their own ways and made their own side project playing the Damned music, because the early days of the Damned, a lot of the music was written by Brian James. So this is really interesting to hear, to see, the original band members pretty much split down the middle, and they're Damned with Dave and Captain Sensible is still doing pretty well, pretty successful, on the tour. Their 40th anniversary was this year, so they're still going, still pretty popular, still sell out shows and things like that. But Rat Scabies and Brian James, on the other hand, they've done their own thing, their duo thing, and they're not really as popular as The Damned. So it's just a really interesting concept, because Brian James wrote a lot of this music, and he owned a lot of the rights to the music. And Captain Sensible, he was a bit of a dick, let's be honest. He talks about how big of a dick he was throughout the entire documentary, and he wanted a cut of the royalties. But I guess in the UK there's a different type of a law where the original person who owns the rights controls all the royalties and stuff like that. So he really didn't have to give anything to Captain Sensible, but ultimately he does, just because he's being a nice guy. So it's just a really interesting story. You guys know I'm a huge Yes fan. Yes is my favorite band. And they have a similar type of a journey over their career as The Damned does in, progressive rock versus punk rock. And they've had their series of fights and band breakups and members going out on their own and trying to make the name for themselves on their own without the band and things like that. And having a extreme popularity rise in the late 80s like Yes did. It's just a really similar thing. The Damned pretty much became mainstream in the late 80s after they've been around for a really long time. And then they got in a huge argument once again, and it faded into obscurity. So, if you guys want to hear a really interesting story about a band that's hugely influential in the punk movement, you should definitely check out this documentary, because this was really well done. And it has, a lot of people besides The Damned in it. We have, a lot of people from The Clash, a lot of people from the Sex Pistols. We got, Dexter from The Offspring, and some people from Blondie, a whole bunch of some people from Pink Floyd, Billy Idol, just a whole bunch. Lemmy was in The Damned in the early days. So just a whole bunch of interviews with a whole bunch of people talking about The Damned and their story. So it's just a really, really great documentary. Definitely the best one out of the 4. And I highly recommend you guys check it out if you are into punk documentaries, because this is a really, really interesting and fascinating story. I feel like the film runs a little bit too long. It's pushing 2 hours almost. And while I feel like I didn't really get bored throughout, I felt like there was some stuff that the filmmakers could have cut a little bit and they would have got their message along. The same, the thing with documentary, it's really, really hard to cut stuff and piece it together. It's definitely the hardest type of film narrative to piece together, because there's just so much stuff that you record and so much interview footage and B-roll and all that kind of stuff that when you try to piece it together in a well-conceived narrative, it's so hard to do. So I understand that on that aspect that it's really, really hard to cut down stuff. But I feel like at an hour and 55 minutes or so, I feel like the film pushes it a little bit too much. And if they would have cut a good 20 minutes or so, I felt like the film would be even more effective and more interesting than what it is. This really, really nice edition from MVD. We have the Blu-ray and the DVD. It comes in this nice case, similar to the Draft House Films releases. Comes in this nice case, comes with this really nice booklet that talks about The Damned and everything else like that. There's Brian James and Rat Scabies. So there's a whole bunch of just really interesting things, and I really, really just enjoyed this documentary. And the fact that they were able to get everybody from the band who weren't as big as part of it as the original 4 members, I found was really, really cool. That it seemed like nobody really had a grudge towards their time in The Damned. So I was really, really happy to see that. So if you guys get a chance to pick this up, like I said, and you're into punk music, I highly, highly recommend it. Especially if you've watched some of the other films that I've reviewed in this series, if you want to say so far. So check it out. I really, really did enjoy it. You can actually pick this up right now from MVD. So check it out. It's really, really good. So thank you everybody for watching this video. If you guys like it, please give it a thumbs up. As always, you follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/NESRuler22. I hope everybody's doing well, and I'll talk to you guys soon. See you guys.